Why the U.S. government has shut down and what happens now. Funding for the U.S. government has been cut off after President Donald Trump's Republican Party failed to agree with opposition Democrats on a way forward on a spending bill. It means that some, but not all, U.S. government services are coming to a temporary halt, although budget confrontations are common in U.S. politics. This spending fight is especially tense because Trump has spent the last 9 months drastically cutting the size of the national government. He has suggested that the present impasse could give him an opportunity to do more of this. Why has the U.S. government shut down? This has happened because the Republicans and Democrats could not come together and pass a bill funding government services into October and beyond. The Republicans control both chambers of Congress, but in the Senate, or upper chamber, they are short of the 60 votes they need to pass a spending bill. Opposition Democrats, therefore, have some leverage. Both sides have been in a bitter standoff over healthcare spending, and the Democrats have refused to back a Republican bill that they say will make it harder for Americans to afford healthcare. They are calling for an extension of tax credits, which are set to expire, that make health insurance cheaper for millions of Americans, and for a reversal of cuts to Medicaid that have been made by Trump. Democrats also oppose spending cuts to government health agencies. A stopgap bill was earlier passed in the House, or lower chamber, but is yet to clear the Senate. And so, at 00:01 EDT on Wednesday, 04:01 GMT, it became official. The U.S. had its first shutdown for nearly 7 years. When will the shutdown end? That is anyone's guess. The last time this happened, in 2018, the shutdown was the longest in history at 35 days. Government shutdowns are easy to get into, but not so easy to get out of. In this case, it really depends on when, or if one of the parties will agree to a compromise. There are two main ways this could end. Either the Republicans negotiate an extension to the healthcare subsidies that the Democrats are demanding, or the shutdown becomes so disruptive that the Democrats back down and agree to fund the government, at least temporarily, to get things up and running again. So far, the Trump administration has been unwilling to offer any substantive concessions, and believe the Democrats will bear the brunt of the public's blame because they are the side making demands in exchange for keeping the government open. Democrats, meanwhile, believe their push for preserving health insurance subsidies is a popular one. What is more, their congressional leaders provoked the ire of left-wing activists for backing down during the last budget bout in March. Many Democrats are itching for a bigger fight this time around, and funding the government is one of the only places where their party has some leverage. What is the impact, and what jobs are affected? Not all of government will shut down. Those deemed essential workers continue as normal, although without pay for the time being. Border protection, law enforcement, immigration and customs enforcement, ICE agents, in-hospital medical care and air traffic control workers are expected to continue to operate as usual. While Social Security and Medicare checks will still be sent out, benefit verification and card issuance may stop. Government employees deemed non-essential are temporarily put on unpaid leave. In the past, these workers have then been paid retrospectively. That means that services like the food assistance program and federally funded preschool and institutions like the Smithsonian. Museums will likely be curtailed or closed. Several agencies, like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the National Institutes of Health, NIH, are likely to furlough many workers, affecting ongoing research and experiments already in progress. National parks and forests remained open during the last shutdown, but with few or no staff. This led to vandalism, littering and looting of historical sites, park advocates said. There could also be travel delays. Flight systems might need to slow down, reducing efficiency, a representative from Airlines for America has warned. Passport agencies have warned that it could take longer than usual to process travel documents. Mail will still be delivered and post offices will remain open because the U.S. Postal Service does not depend on Congress for funding. Most American schools are state-funded. However, the federal government is responsible for billions of dollars in grants and student loans, which could effectively come to a halt. That said, because the grants are awarded during the summer, they will be largely unaffected during this shutdown, the Education Secretary has said. Government shutdowns often start off slow, but the pain steadily builds and has a knock-on effect not only to federal workers, but ordinary Americans. Overall, analysts expect that this shutdown could be bigger than the last one in 2018. Around 750,000 federal workers, roughly 40%, will be taking unpaid leave each day, according to an estimate from the Congressional Budget Office, CBO. What's different about the White House response this time? What stands out about this current standoff is the position of Trump's team. In the past, long shutdowns were usually seen as politically dangerous, hampering both voters' everyday lives and the images of lawmakers and the president. But this time, the Trump administration appears more than happy to shutter large parts of the U.S. government for an extended period. In fact, officials have threatened to use a shutdown to identify non-essential workers who could then be permanently let go. "We'll be laying off a lot of people," Trump said on Tuesday. Also, after previous shutdowns, government operations mostly returned to normal, with staff and spending levels largely going back to what they had been before, once the standoff was resolved. Over the past 9 months, however, the Trump administration has slashed spending and pushed workers out of their jobs, testing the boundaries of presidential power. A shutdown could allow the administration to accelerate its massive reductions. While both sides are blaming each other for the situation, they did make last-ditch efforts to try to avoid it. On Monday, Trump met all 4 congressional leaders, the top Democrats in the House and Senate, as well as their Republican counterparts. But there was little progress, and both sides appear to have dug deeper into their positions. When was the last government shutdown? U.S. government shutdowns have become quite common over the past 50 years. There were 3 during Trump's first term alone. We last saw a shutdown in late 2018, which lasted 35 days, the longest in history. It was brought about by disagreements over funding a wall on the Mexico border. It finally ended in part because air traffic controllers, who had been working for a month without pay, started calling in sick en masse. Flights were canceled or delayed because of the lack of staff, and the shutdown came to an end shortly afterwards. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO, estimated that the 2018-2019 shutdown reduced economic output by about 11 BN, including 3 BN that it never regained, but shutdowns predate Trump. The second longest to date was 21 days, under Democrat Bill Clinton in 1995. Barack Obama, also a Democrat, saw a 16-day shutdown during his time in the White House, and Republican Ronald Reagan oversaw 8 shutdowns during his presidency in the 1980s, though all were relatively brief. Shutdowns over budgets are a unique aspect of U.S. politics. Under the U.S. system, the different branches of government have to reach an agreement on spending plans before they can become law. In most countries, budget votes become votes of confidence in the government itself. But because the U.S. has equal and often divided branches of government, that is not the case. How could this shutdown affect the economy? The scale of the damage will depend in part on how long the shutdown lasts and how wide-ranging it is. In the past, disruption has tended to be temporary, with any lost activity mostly made up in the months after the shutdown ends. Analysts estimate a shutdown this time could shave roughly 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points off economic growth for each week that it lasts, though much of that could be recouped. That relatively muted impact may be why the stock market seems to be shrugging off this latest threat. But again, there are some ways that this shutdown could look different. For one thing, Trump has threatened to fire, not just furlough, some workers, which would make the impact more long-lasting. The fight is also injecting more turmoil into an economy already being roiled by changes like tariffs and artificial intelligence, with the likely delay of key data, such as the official U.S. monthly jobs report, expected to add to the uncertainty.